Emily, we are now talking Team Liquid. We're talking tactical. Would it be tactical for Team Liquid to keep tactical in the roster based off this weekend?
I mean, we'll see. I think, again, they were really smart about how they wanted to play with tactical, how they drafted for him. I will say that 2v2 early kill against 100T, that was more of a misstep with 100 Thieves and them like capitalizing on it with detaching as Yumi, where they could easily get stunned up by the Taric. So I think that was a little bit more of a capitalizing on a mistake. But I do think that tactical stepped in and he performed really well. As for whether they'll replace Doublelift with him, I'm not so sure. Doublelift is one of those players who it's really difficult to sit, right? Because he's just not only the legacy, but generally he's one of the best, if not the best, AD carry in North America at all times. I know he has had a rough split. I know part of it has been some of the drafting things with Senna, how they didn't really, again, Darren mentioned it a bit, but how they didn't really set up Schernfire for success as much in draft. But I think the most important thing that I've seen from TL this past week is Bjergsen looking more comfortable with the team, and also him being able to coming over from Fnatic, I think I touched on this last week, but he would kind of perma-camp like one side of the map over the other and not really go back and forth. I think we're seeing him open up more a bit as a jungler. I don't know if that's because he's receiving instruction. I've heard he's a bit quiet in comms, so I don't know what their comms are like at all, but it did seem that with Tactical in the lineup, he was a bit more like, for example, he went and kept down the Kayle against TSM, which is kind of something that you want to do with a flashless Kayle. He just kept punishing that. So I think that was also, TL looked a lot more cohesive just as a unit. And I don't know if that is necessarily because of tactical or just because of the way they drafted, or the fact that Bjergsen is finally communicating and they just have general better team synergy. It could be all three. But this TL definitely looked more like what we expect from TL, and that was really good for them. And now they've like skyrocketed in the standings because everything is still up in the air with all of the middle tier teams.
Yeah, I totally agree with Emily on Bjergsen making smart moves, not just in one side of the map, but in both sides of the map. He had a really nice flank on a visionless team solo mid. When he pushed down into the mid lane, he did a really smart thing where he helped his top lane get ahead by getting that Kayle set behind a little bit more. And then again, against 100 Thieves, after the misstep from that bot lane, he visited down there to help get that tower broken down and release the bot lane to help roam a little bit. So Bjergsen being a little bit more active to me helps just give Team Liquid all of the freedom that they need to do and accentuate their strength.
Yeah. What about, so when you look at Bjergsen's progression week over week on Team Liquid, do you feel like we are approaching his final form and really what Team Liquid fans had hoped for and dreamed about in terms of Bjergsen being on this team, Emily?
I mean, I think Bjergsen still has, like, even when he was on Fnatic, I thought he was really good at some things and needed some work on others. How to adjust in-game when a draft game plan kind of falls apart was one of them. And I haven't seen him necessarily fail at that on TL, but I also haven't seen him succeed. So if I'm looking at a mixture of kind of in-game adaptability and some of those intangibles we talked about with team synergy, that's what I really want to see going forward. This week, again, to stress, like we saw TL, I think, really set up well for what they wanted to do in draft, especially even though, like, I actually later I'm going to somewhat sort of defend TSM's team comp. That was a comp that was, going to kind of get shoved in early so they could capitalize on it early, because that is, they're looking to scale. And they took advantage of that. I think what I really want to see from Bjergsen and when TL gets pushed by a stronger team is going to be how he and the rest of the team react when stuff doesn't go according to their draft plan, right? When they do have to adjust in game. I think that's really going to be the biggest test for Broxa and TL. That's kind of like the next test on the horizon.
Chrono Trigger in the chat says, I think this shows that Doublelift might need to take a back seat in shot calling for the current meta. Before we move off of TL to talk C9, I feel like we should tie a bow on who we would want to see in the 80 carry position for Team Liquid next week, whether or not Doublelift is healthy. In my opinion, it's a choice between a proven commodity in Doublelift, but somebody who might not necessarily be taking Spring seriously, and somebody who's a very strong voice and a leader on this team, so you have to listen to him in terms of comms, versus somebody who seems to be a very good role player on the team in tactical, and somebody who will try his best to adapt to whatever team scenario there is and be that role player, but also has something to prove in the LCS, so will certainly take Spring seriously. Which one are you picking? Darren, let's start with you.
So I agree with all of that, and I look at the next 3 weeks for Team Liquid. You have Logic Gaming Immortals for the next week, and then Evil Geniuses and Golden Guardians before a final tough week of FlyQuest and Cloud9. I say, why not give Tactical another week? See how he looks. What happens? Is he going to be that role player that Team Liquid needs and just doesn't die and does his job and gets to that late game and does a ton of damage?
Hasn't died yet.
Right. He's deathless. So why not? Why not just see what happens? You know, it is Spring. And if it is Spring, why not try out a couple of different ideas, different players, different roles, different champions, and see where you go?
Emily, what do you think?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I really can't, like, it sucks because I'm the one who always says, like, give academy players a shot, right? And I think this proved that Tactical is, you know, more than ready for the LCS stage. The main problem that I have in my mind is that the person he would be replacing is still one of the best bot laners in North America. So it's really difficult for me thinking about, like, I'm going over in my mind, like, how their comms work, and now I'm just morbidly curious because obviously, like, Doublelift is a massive voice, but he was out this week. You're not expecting Tactical to have a massive voice, but maybe he does, because I've heard that Broxa and Impact are both fairly quiet. So now I'm like looking at this team and I'm like, is it Jensen and Core who are calling the shots this past weekend? Is Broxa finally stepping up and really finding his voice, where we heard from his time of Fnatic that he was traditionally like really, really quiet and kind of took direction from the rest of the team? Like, now I'm just morbidly curious about their comm system and also how loud Tactical was and how much of that is Core, because we know that, like, in my opinion, Core is just a really brilliant mind. Like, he's so smart about the game. So maybe it means that he's been stepping up in comms. Like, that would be what I would be looking at if I was TL. Like, how did the team communicate? What was their synergy like? And then move forward from there.